Welcome to topic 7 of Windows Server Administration. And this topic is a bit of a mixture of different things that we have that I've put together. So in this we have Remote Desktop, App V, WSUS, and a topic I've called Other Services, which is just some other services. So the first part, Remote Desktop Services. So before we look at remote desktop services, let's consider the distinction between remote desktop and remote administration. So remote administration allows us to log into a server from another server, okay? And if we're not doing it with SSH in PowerShell over the command line, we can use the RDP protocol to open up the Windows remote desktop on another Windows computer, okay? Now, one point to make about doing this is that only one person can be logged into the computer at a time. So if you were to walk up to the server and someone was logged in via RDP, it would say so-and-so user is logged in and so the computer is locked. Okay, so that's just something to think about. It makes it slightly different from an SSH session. In order to turn this on, we go to Server Manager, Remote Management. We go to Start Screen, Properties of Local Servers page, click the hyperlink value for Remote Administration, okay? Likewise, we just untick that box that you can see over there if we don't want the server to be remotely administered, all right? So we just untick this, click OK, all right? And there's a little hyperlink that will give you some more information. So, that's remote administration. What about remote desktop services? So remote desktop services, okay, is a role that we can add to Windows Server. Okay, now remote desktop services used to be called terminal server, okay, and it's an example of presentation virtualization. Okay, and we have this thing called a connection broker, which accommodates user access to desktops. Okay, so we can add a role, and we're not going to do this in the labs because it's quite difficult to scale in a lab environment. So we just need to understand that an RD gateway is a web location remote users can connect to in order to set up a remote connection. Now, to give an example of this, all right, if I was to go, let me just grab a new window here. Okay, if I'm to go to, let's see, remote.edinburghcollege.ac.uk, this takes me to this page here. Okay, and this is actually remote desktop services. All right, and this allows me to log in. Now, it doesn't work for students. They only have enough capacity on the server to set it up for staff. But this is an example of a remote desktop gateway. Likewise, probably shouldn't show you this, but I'll just show you it anyway. A global financial corporation I used to work for, I'll show you their remote login, if it's still on the same address. So remote.blackrock.com. Oh, tell me I spelled remote wrong. Remote.blackrock.com. All right, and so this is how you would log in, and you would get your Windows desktop here. Now they're not using Windows remote desktop services; they're using a Citrix client, but it's the same idea. So the convention generally is that you do remote.yourorganization.domain. All right, and this will let you sign into your desktop. So that is what remote desktop services facilitates. Okay, the RD gateway, once that's set up, it uses RDP and HTTPS to add security. Okay, so remote administration being a facility that allows you to log into the server remotely, and remote desktop services being a role that we can add that allow us to log into our desktop remotely, or allow our staff to log in. Obviously, you wouldn't want the staff logging into the server, would you? You want the staff to draw their own desktops. Okay, so accessing resources through remote desktop services. If remote users have to be able to access network-based resources from home, but access their local drives, this is something that we could configure. So we can actually enable something called local devices and resources. And if we just check the appropriate drive in local devices and resources, this will allow a local drive on the machine to be shared over a remote desktop services session. Okay, so one point that I've put here is more and more workers work from home, making cloud services available through Azure, Office 365, or Google's G Suite. I feel that this is becoming less and less of a thing. However, I suppose some people still need to access their desktop. Okay, if they've got internal databases or systems, it might be important that they run an isolated client. Okay, so what are the advantages of a remote desktop gateway? Well, it enables users to connect to the internal network over the internet using an encrypted connection, okay, without having to set up some sort of bespoke VPN. Okay, RD Gateway provides comprehensive security configuration model that enables you to control access to specific internal network resources. So you can decide who's allowed to connect to what. And it enables most network users to connect internal network resources that are hosted behind firewalls across NAT. Okay, so we can share drives and things across that remote desktop services. Okay, so there's a remote desktop gateway manager, and that just allows us to set up authorization policies, what network resources are allowed, and whether client computers must be members of the Active Directory, security groups, whether device redirection is allowed. Okay, we can also set up things like a smart card authentication or password authentication using this RD Gateway Manager. All right, so you can have things like fobs, RSA tokens that flash up with a PIN every couple of seconds, and you can get users to enter these in. Okay. Terminal Services Web Access is a web interface that displays a list of all applications published from a particular terminal server. So it's possible for users to launch just an application through a terminal server. And if I go again to remote, and I'll just log in here and show you, I can actually launch, for example, say project or PowerPoint. I can launch these over a remote services connection, okay, and they'll launch in an RDP window, okay, and they won't be running on my machine. They'll be running on a server, all right, an Edinburgh College server. So this allows RDP clients to communicate with a terminal server using HTTPS, rather than having to log in and take control of a full machine. We can just log in through the TS gateway and launch a particular application. So some other options for streaming applications, Microsoft actually has a piece of software called AppV. Okay, AppV is for application streaming. All right, and AppV allows us to sandbox applications from each other and stream them over the network. Okay, so all we really need to know about AppV is that it allows application streaming and it allows sandboxing of applications. Now, there are alternatives to AppV for packaging up applications. Two I'm going to mention for this course. One is called Citrix XenApp. Okay, that allows Windows applications to be packaged up and run on devices that typically wouldn't be able to run them. Okay, so you could run a specific Windows app on a Mac or a mobile device using one of these pieces of software here. Okay, so VMware make their own application streaming, application virtualization software called VMware ThinApp. Okay, and Citrix make their own one called Citrix XenApp. Now, that's enough about kind of remote services. Let's have a look at update services, Windows Server update services specifically. The shortcut, the nickname for Windows Server update services is WSUS. Okay, WSUS. So, WSUS provides features that you can use to manage and distribute updates through a management console. A WSUS server can be the update source for other WSUS servers. The WSUS server that acts as an update source is called an upstream server. In a WSUS implementation, at least one WSUS server on your network must be able to connect to Microsoft Update to get updates. Okay, so how do we actually set up Windows Server Update services? Well, there are a few different types of setup, okay, and some terminology to understand. So, first of all, when you connect a Windows Server Update services server to Microsoft Update, that is called synchronize, okay, synchronization. So pulling Windows updates or downloading them in the world of WSUS is called synchronize, okay? Then when you decide that you're going to send those updates out to the clients in your network, that is called approve, okay? An auto approval rule is a rule that means that, let's say, for example, all your clients run Microsoft Edge. You might want to automatically approve all updates for Edge, and you can do that with an auto approval rule. Finally, there are two reports we can generate with WSUS. An update status summary provides an overview, and an update detailed status report provides detailed information on what updates have and also what updates have not been installed on each machine in the network. So there are different types of WSUS deployment. A simple WSUS deployment is apparently the most basic, okay? And all this is, a simple one, is we just have one server and it connects to Windows Update to download updates, okay? A multiple WSUS server, we can have, all right, a setup that looks like this graphic over here. So a couple of servers, one of them connects to Windows Update, all right. Then we have our clients here, and we can choose to synchronize and then approve updates out to the network, okay? The third way is a disconnected WSUS setup where we actually have the Windows server, the update server, off of the network. We then download updates and test them in some safe environment. And then when we're happy, and this is what Microsoft actually say, we can put the updates on a DVD and then walk into the network and plug the DVD in and do it there. So that would be quite a, a very, very, how should we say, a very cautious way of doing things. So that is an overview of Windows Server Update services. Let's have a look at some other services. Perfmon, NPAS, Windows Defender GUI, and IIS. So Perfmon, the Reliability and Performance Monitor, allows us to establish baselines and to monitor particular features of a Windows server. And we can actually create something called a custom data collector set. Okay, so if I asked you a question, how could we collect customized data from a particular service on a Windows server? The answer would be using the reliability and performance monitor. Okay. For example, you might wish to monitor CPU usage of the print server and also monitor disk utilization of the disk that the print spooler lives on. And we could create a custom collector set in the reliability and performance monitor to do that. Okay. If a server has an issue you wish to monitor, you can create a custom data collector set in perfmon and you can monitor it, and you can set it up to generate alerts, whether these are alerts just going to the event viewer or whether these are emails popping up on your phone. If something really bad's happening, you can do that with the reliability and performance monitor role. Okay. When we set let's say, for example, we want it to tell us if a disk is 90% full or 80% full. This would be a baseline. Okay, and we can set these up. We can configure these in the reliability and performance monitor. Okay, the next one is network policy and access services. Now, the reason that we're not setting this up is because I think it's too complicated. Just like remote desktop services, it's too complicated for us to set up in a small lab. Okay, I feel that the benefits we'd get from configuring this would it would take too long to set it up to see very, very little happening. Okay, it's the same as certificate services. You click on wizards and configure things for hours, and then at the end of it, it's just like a little green tick saying, yep, NPAS is on. So with NPAS, we can provide remote network services using a network policy server. So this includes things like Radius, okay, that will allow us to authenticate wireless clients. We can also set up a thing called HCAP, the Host Credential Authorization Protocol. This allows Cisco network devices to communicate with Windows network devices. I've added a link to a blog here where someone takes you through the steps of installing, configuring, and troubleshooting network policy and access services. You can see they've given all the stages here. So add the role, then we go to the wizard, then we click finish, then I'm going to guess we open up the client and it looks the same as the other Microsoft management consoles. Then we can create some kind of a policy with some conditions. Then we can do like authentication, accounting. Then we can call it a test policy. Then we can enable it. Then we can create conditions. Then we can create an authentication method, PEEP there. Then we can do a self-signed certificate. Obviously on Linux, we would do this with OpenSSL. Then we can add the certificate. Then we could use some tick box thing there. Then we could do a shared secret. Then we can enable a Radius client. Then we could do a NT rad ping. We could test to see if Radius was responding. And then we can configure some kind of logging. So there we go. So if you happen to have a spare few hours one day, please feel free to set up a Radius server with network policy and access services using Windows Server. Okay, so if you wanted to set up like an AAA server, I think the command in Cisco is AAA new model to set up a Radius server. You can do that with Windows Server, and there's a blog there explaining how to do it. I don't feel we'd get very much out of doing it in a lab setting. Okay, so couple of other things. The Windows Defender graphical user interface. So by default, okay, Windows Defender antivirus is installed and functional on both Server 2016 and 2019. Sometimes the GUI is installed by default but it's not required because you can use PowerShell or other methods to manage Microsoft Defender antivirus. However, if you wanted to add the graphical environment, okay, you can add roles and features, and you can add the Windows Defender graphical user interface for Windows Defender. Okay. Internet Information Services. So IIS is a role that we can add, and it lets us turn a Windows server into a web server. Now, the difference between an IIS server on Windows, apart from the performance, is the fact that you configure it by clicking on wizards and menus. Okay, you click, like, if you want to add a redirect or something, you would click add redirect. Where do you want to redirect to? Okay, enable. And we can do this using IIS, and that's Microsoft's web server. So it's basically, it does exactly the same thing as Apache, except it's a role on the Windows server. Okay, it has some features like network load balancing, Windows Server load balancing, and Windows Server failover. Now, everything that this can do, all right, Apache can do. Okay, this is just Microsoft's Windows web server. So if anyone ever asks you what an IIS server is, it's a Microsoft Windows web server, Internet Information Services. Once again, this is very easy to set up. We would just go manage, add roles and features, tick IIS, go through the wizard, and it would be added as a role to the server. You may have to go back to Lab 5 and look at step 2.1, because there were some folders we created there. A folder called shares, for example, that we created back there. Now, in this one, we're going to map a network drive, part 1. All right, so I've been getting a few questions on the Discord about sharing folders. So let's just talk about this just now. This PC, okay, C, I'm going to make a folder, all right, called shares. Now, when I right click on this folder and go to properties, okay, go to the sharing, at the moment, this folder is stated by Windows as not shared. So if I click share, okay, I can choose who I want to share it with. Now, obviously, we're not studying security specifically, so let's just test everyone, right? So I want to share this with everyone, okay? And let's give them read and write permissions, okay? And then I think we can click the share button. Now, what we've been given here is a share path, all right, //win minus, this is the name of the machine, /shares, okay? Now, what that actually means is the other machines within this Windows domain should be able to access this share by typing this, okay? Now, that would only be if DNS resolution was actually in place, okay? If DNS wasn't working, we can always try typing the IP address / the name of the share. So I know for a fact that the IP address of this machine is 10.1.1.1. So we do //10.10.10.1 and press return. Okay, what it's doing is it's loading up, okay, the network. Of course, I had to click that, didn't I? It's loading up what it can see across the network, okay? And we can see that that shared folder has this little icon, this little network icon, like a T bar, T junction. And that shows that that's shared, okay? So we go in here, we can now see that the path to that share is 10.10.10.1/shares, okay? So, I mean, we could put the name of the machine /shares, but that doesn't really care. The IP address always works, all right? So I'm going to open up my Windows client, Okay, and we will, let's just open the library, Windows 10 client. Let's start up the Windows 10 client. While that's booting up, let me just jump back to the lab. So go to the shares folder, right click, choose properties and sharing, select share. I just demonstrated how to do that. Okay, then it'll give you some kind of a path. Okay, I'm saying you should take note of what that share path is. Then go to the client machine, log in, okay, and map that share as a network drive. Okay, so we'll give the client machine a wee bit of time to load in the background, then I'll show you how to do that. Right, once we've done that, okay, we're going to go into Server Manager, okay, and we're going to do an SMB share advanced. Okay, this just gives us a bit more configuration options, all right, but it's basically an enhanced version of what we did before. Okay, now we add some users, one in the technical support group, and we're going to try and access that share. Okay, and we're going to try and control access to that share using group policy. All right, the next part should be fairly straightforward. Okay, all we have to do is enable this facility called DNSSEC. Now, DNS is unsigned, and what this does is this allows you to sign DNS records, okay, with a zone signing key. It should be fairly straightforward to set up. Okay. Part 4, we're going to enable ICMP replies to the server. So we're just going to follow these steps to do this. All right. We basically create a rule on the server to allow inbound ICMP traffic, and then verify it by pinging from the client to the server. The very last part we're going to do is a thing called NIC teaming. Okay, now NIC teaming used to cause 1 or 2 problems in some earlier parts. That's why I've added it to the very end. Okay, and what we're going to do with NIC teaming, okay, is we're going to actually join together some network adapters to allow a ping. So I'll give a demonstration of that in just a moment. Of course, I've started the wrong Windows machine, haven't I? I've started my Cisco Windows machine. Let me power that off. All right, and let's start up the Windows 10 client. I might even edit this to make it look like it all worked. Do you want to try and connect? Can't connect. No, I don't care. I don't care. So I'll illustrate this next bit that shows how to get to the share. Okay, and then I'll show you NIC teaming. Now, please do NIC teaming last, okay, because it's going to break all the networking on your machine, I bet. Right, so there's our share, okay, and let's jump over to the Windows 10 client. Hopefully it'll let me log in the next 20 minutes. Come on, Windows 10. Okay, and let's just, oh, do we want to log in as the default user? Other user, let's log in as administrator. Okay, no holds barred here. Probably edit this bit on. So log into the client machine, and we don't want to sign in as, we want to sign into our domain as administrator. All right, and then let's do capital E. Oh dear. Oh dear, dear, dear. Oh, this isn't good, is it? Let's do, I swear I added this to the domain. What? Hey, what? Let's log in as default user then. Ha, I'm in. Excellent. This should be fine because, okay, in the settings, I've got this on the LAN segment. So regardless of whether it's on the domain or not, okay, it should be able to see the share. Okay, don't quote me on this, right? But so over on the client machine, first thing we should do is open up CMD. Okay, and let's just see if we can ping ec.com. Great. Right. Now, the important bit is that it's resolving ec.com to the IP address. The reply isn't so important. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is do Windows key and R, get this back up, and let's do //10.10.10.1. Okay. That's all I'm going to type, and I'm going to press return. Haha. Okay. So let's log in as administrator. Okay, pop the password in. All right, we're in. We can now see the shares folder here on the client. Okay, so let's go back to our server. All right, let's go to the local disk. Okay, and to demonstrate that this sharing's working, let's do a new file. Okay, and let's just call it, let's put a text document, call it, hi there, client PC. Okay, and let's head back over to the client PC. And you can see, look, there it is there, hi there, client PC. Okay, let's try doing a new file on the server. Hi there, Mr. Server. Well, let's just do Mrs. Server. And we go over to the server, there's the file there. So this is showing that sharing's working. Okay. Now, let's say you've got a user and they don't understand about putting the share path in. What we might want to do is map, okay, that share to a network drive, map network drive. And we can choose a letter we want to map it to. So in the office, you might create a shared drive and call it the Z drive and be like that to everybody. Okay. Everybody just save it on the Z drive. Now, all we're going to do, okay, is give it the path to the drive that we want to map. All right, let's browse for folder. So maybe we need to pop the / at the beginning. Let's do browse. All right, shares, there it is there. Okay, finish. So now this client machine, okay, if we open out network down here at the side, we should see, okay, network discovery is turned on. Let's turn it on then. It's going to be as difficult as possible about it. Basically, we should see a network drive map there once we've turned on relevant network discovery. So that can make things easier for staff, all right? If we have this Z drive down here, you can say to them, just go to your C drive or go to your Z drive. And obviously the Z drive is a folder on the machine. Okay, right. That's enough demonstration of sharing. Let me just kill this. So let's look at NIC teaming. Okay, now this is a topic that causes particular strife to people. So what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to add some network adapters. So let's add network adapter. Okay, let's add 3 network adapters and let's put them all in the same LAN segment. Save. Now, this may upset the machine for a minute. It might get quite upset by this. Okay. Does a little mini refresh in the background. Okay, cool. So if we were to go into our network and sharing center now, we would be able to see that we have a few different adapters there. So let's just go in and have a look and see. So let's do network and sharing center and change adapter settings. All right, look, here's our adapters here, okay? So we've got Ethernet 0 that we keep as our root, and then we've got these 3 adapters here, 1, 2, and 3 that I added, okay? It's offset from 0. So those are the 3 that I've added. Now, if I were to go to Server Manager, okay, and go to Local Server, this should bring up some options. And one of the options I'm going to enable is an option called NIC teaming. Now, it says here NIC teaming's disabled. So I'm going to enable NIC teaming by clicking here. Okay. And what's going to happen is Windows is going to join some network adapters together for me. Now, let's do new team. Okay. I'm going to call this team Office Hashing. All right. And let's add leave 0. Let's add these 3 new adapters to it. Okay. In additional properties, we want to set this to a switch independent address hash NIC team. Okay. Virtual Machine's operating system has attempted to enable promiscuous mode. That's fine. Apparently it's not allowed. Let's see what happens. Connection pending. Okay. Interesting. It looks like VMware is going to break this very badly. Let's go back to the network and sharing center. Okay, so what we have here is a thing called this is the team of network adapters. So these have all been joined together into a team. All right, and I'm going to go to properties for this. And I'm going to go to IPv4, and we're going to give this an IP address 10, 10, 10, say 5, all right? Because the server's on 1, client's on 10 or 100 or something. So let's give this 5, all right? Let's make the default gateway the server. Okay, let's make the DNS server the server. Okay, you press space to jump octets, right? Okay, close. Now I see things happening in the background. Ah, look, all 3 of these are active. Now, if I open, and let's be fancy here, let's open CMD. If I open CMD now, okay, I should be able to ping 10, 5, okay? And what I'm going to do is, well, let's try and see if that works. Okay, so that works. So the Office, the grouped network adapters are responding, all right? And they're in concert, they're working together. So if I want that ping to keep running indefinitely, I'm going to do it with the /t flag. And let's pop this over here. And this is how we prove that we've got these network adapters in a team. Now, jump back over to the network and sharing center, okay, and move this over like this. Now, how do we show that we've got some kind of load balancing going on here? Well, first of all, if I was to not click diagnose this connection, which never works. Right, if I disable Ethernet 3, right, watch this. It keeps going. Disable Ethernet 2, keeps going. Now, watch what happens when I disable Ethernet 1. It stops, yeah? You can see this. If I enable any of these 3, let's do 3, for example. So at the moment it's destination hosts unreachable. Let's do that, enable. So here comes network adapter 3 back. And we're back. We're back in the room. So what we've done is we've connected 3 adapters together in a team. All right, and this is going to give us, this is a redundancy feature of Windows Server. So there we go. We've put them all back on now. It'll just sort its life out for a second and then it'll start working again. This is the last bit for today, so I feel like I should wait until it starts working again. Oh, it's alive. Brilliant. So that's how we prove that. So for example, if we were to, when these were all off, if we just enabled one and took a screenshot, that would show that we had NIC teaming working. Hopefully this demo eliminates most of the questions, all right, about NIC teaming. Okay, and we can see here that NIC teaming is enabled.